In a world where every tree is inhabited by its own gentle and benign spirit, it is your important task to ensure that every sapling grows strong and big, and offers a home for as many small creatures and plants as possible, thereby creating harmony and balance in the forest. If you can work in harmony with the seasons and nurture the worms, fireflies, flowers and mushrooms that grow on the tree that you've been tasked to look after, you will come out as the best caretaker, and will be generously rewarded with health and happiness by the tree spirit, the Kodama, that inhabits your tree. It is this work that you carry out in Kodama the Tree Spirits by Action Phase Games. Here's a game that is gentle, peaceful, almost zen, and certainly very beautiful to look at. As soon as you see the box, you know what to expect. The art by Crunchy Moria is just gorgeous. It's cartoony and cute, without being tacky or overdone. You can immediately see that this game is friendly and enjoyable, and as you start to play it, your expectations are met. Your main focus is on growing your tree and making your Kodama happy. Every time you play a branch card, you try and make it neatly fit your tree, which is very satisfying and makes you feel rather creative. Like a gardener would graft a tree onto suitable rootstock, you add branches to your tree, and when you successfully extend the colony of plants or creatures living on your tree, you get a lot of enjoyment, akin to the pride a gardener will feel when a graft is successfully taken. In fact, the whole game is very organic and puts you in touch with nature. It is very calming, almost zen-like. There's also very little player interaction, even though it is competitive and everyone draws branch cards from a central pool of cards. It is possible to take the branch that would give your opponents the most points, but most of the time you're better off focusing on what you need, rather than ruining other players' plans. Even when a player does try to spoil it for you, you still get a huge feeling of enjoyment and satisfaction from placing your branches onto your tree. Seeing your tree grow and the animals and plants inhabit the newly created living space is much more fun than worrying about how many points you get from what card. In fact, I've seen very competitive players stop worrying about points and instead start focusing on making their Kodama happy. Of course, ultimately the game is about finding the best branch that gives you the most points, while also fulfilling your personal objectives and gaining as much benefit from the seasonal bonuses as possible. If you're good at 2D puzzles, then you'll be good at playing Kodama the Tree Spirits. The game does remind me of The Hanging Gardens by Hans im Glück, in that you're trying to select a card from a central offer row that gives you the most points. However, the art and the ability to place cards anywhere, in any orientation, as long as the branch of the new card touches a branch on the tree, makes Kodama a lot more satisfying and almost tactile. It's also an easy game to teach and play, ideal for younger players, and also a great gateway game. Its length makes it also an option for a game to finish off a games night. It's a real all-rounder in my view, and well worth a closer look. It comes in a small box, so it won't take up much room on your game shelf, or in your cupboard. Thank you for listening to this Tabletop Games blog review. There's also a written version of it on my blog, links in the description of this podcast. There you'll also find links to my Ko-fi and Patreon pages if you want to support me financially. Other than that, please also like this podcast and subscribe to it. Leave some stars if you're an Apple Podcast. Everything would be really welcome. And review it if you can as well. Other than that, tell your friends about it. And generally, I hope you join me again for another episode of Tabletop Games Blog Review. Thanks for listening and bye. This podcast was made possible by my Patreon supporters: David Miller of Subquad Publishing, James Naylor of Naylor Games, Paul Grogan of Gaming Rules, Robin Kay of Ruined Sky Games, Sarah Reed of Undine Studios, Tim Vernick, and Richard Simpson of We're Not Wizards.